In this video, I will break down Real Madrid's match versus Barcelona in the Supercopa Final. Despite Real Madrid's absolute destruction of Barcelona over the last few years, after one win, Barca believes that they're back on Real Madrid's level. Barcelona is set to be humbled in a massive way on Sunday in Saudi. In this video, I'll break down the 5 ways Real Madrid can and will smash Barcelona. Stick around to the end because I'll provide the projected lineup for the game and my match prediction. Let's get into it. The first thing that I'm going to talk about in this video is Barcelona's offside trap. In Real Madrid's clash against Barcelona in the Clásico, Mbappé was caught offsides 8 times. And one of the ways Real Madrid can win this game is by beating the offside trap. Over the last few games, we've seen Barcelona lose to some pretty abysmal teams. It's no secret that both Vinicius and Mbappé had a pretty disappointing game in the Clásico. Mbappé was missing open sitters, and for Barcelona to implement the same strategy and be as lucky again 2 times in a row, I just don't believe that's going to happen. Mbappe's form has improved tremendously, and the timing of his runs in particular has improved because he's played in this role a little bit more since that game. But now there's a clear blueprint by other teams on how to beat this Barcelona offside trap, and it's either through ball carrying from players in deeper positions, or it comes typically from the wide space, and we've seen Atletico effectively implement this. And that's why I'm very optimistic that Real Madrid is going to open up Barcelona like they're one of Diddy's cellmates. But one of the things, and what I'll get into a little later in this video, is whether Carlo Ancelotti is going to go with a front 3 with the 4-3-3 system or go back to the 4-4-2 with Dani Ceballos coming in for Rodrigo potentially. And that's something that Carlo Ancelotti could look to do. Rodrigo scored against Mallorca and he's in good form. But one of the things that wouldn't surprise me if Carlo Ancelotti does is try and emphasize having control of the ball by overloading the midfield with 4 midfielders. And between Koundé and Balde, Barca's left-hand side is more susceptible to transition opportunities than Koundé. Koundé, I have to give him his credit. He's a solid right back. That little fruit buttercup is actually pretty decent from a physical standpoint, but all it takes is for Real Madrid to effectively beat the offside trap 1 or 2 times earlier in the game. But that brings me into my second point, which is Jude Bellingham's new role. After the game against Atalanta, Jude Bellingham spoke about the new role that he's taken on at Real Madrid.
There was a lot of changing of positions to see where I could fit in and feel comfortable, but I've always thought that as a player, when I'm playing with freedom, that's when I'm at my best. And you know, I've had meetings with Carlo, and he's helped me find that freedom again. And yeah, I think I'm benefiting as a result.
He said that he's met with Carlo Ancelotti and that he's agreed on taking on this new type of role that gives him a little bit more freedom. But if you look at since that game, Jude Bellingham has been playing higher up the pitch, both when Real Madrid has the ball and when they don't have the ball. And where this is critical is when Real Madrid does recover the ball, Jude could be found between the lines. And there's no player who's better in world football than receiving that ball from deeper positions, from players like Fede, from players like Camavinga, to be able to then release Mbappé and Vinicius. But what Jude Bellingham also does is he presses the ball higher up the pitch, and that forces teams to move the ball forward more quickly. But I'm going to get into more of the specifics of Jude's role in the next few items. The third thing I want to talk about in this video, which is very important, it's arguably one of the most important, if not the most important thing, which is do not overcommit to the press. We know that Carlo Ancelotti likes to change up the tactics. Sometimes the team sits in a deep block like we did at the Etihad where we beat Manchester City. We didn't try to press Manchester City because that wouldn't have made sense. But the game, the Clásico at the Bernabeu, Carlo Ancelotti tried to go for a more aggressive style to try to win the ball high up the pitch. And a lot of the times we did recover the ball. But what that did was it did create a lot of opportunities for us in the first half, which we didn't convert. But in the second half, the team was gassed. So if you overcommit to your press, like the way we did against Mallorca, we effectively pressed them, but they also don't have the quality that Barcelona has. And that's why in this game, it's important for the team not to overcommit to the press, because the use of our energy is going to be really important in the second half, not just the first. The only time pressing makes sense for us as a team is if we're effectively using those opportunities and we're scoring and converting those chances. Of course, if we scored one of those many chances that we had in the first half, we're looking at a whole different proposition of a game. But against Barcelona in the Supercopa, I think we know that Real Madrid typically struggles with implementing an effective press, because if you can beat that first line of press, you have a lot more space in transition. And that brings me to point number 4, which is equally as important, which is to try and provide more cover defensively for Lucas Vázquez against Rafinha. Rafinha he is the most effective attacking player for Barcelona at this very moment. Some people will talk about Lamine Yamal, and I'm not saying Lamine Yamal doesn't do anything for them. Of course, he's an effective attacking player, but if you're looking at their biggest threat, it's Rafinha. Rafinha did create that chance in the Clásico against Lucas Vázquez, and physically he's outmatched against him, but that's not a good 1v1 situation. And that's something Carlo needs to consider because when Rafinha does get the ball, he cannot be isolated against Lucas Vázquez. That's not a good 1v1 duel. But moving Fede Valverde out of position, out of the midfield, because I expect him to go with a double pivot in this game. Putting Fede in that position only makes sense if you have 4 midfielders. But if you go with a 4-3-3 system and you play Jude higher up the pitch and you give the responsibility to Fede to provide more cover for Lucas Vázquez against Rafinha, then that leaves a gap for you in the middle. But if you play with 4 midfielders, that's where you can have more of a focus. Maybe you put, like we saw Dani Ceballos do this against Atalanta, and he was playing in the pivot, and he provided more defensive cover for Lucas Vázquez in that game. So that's why I have a feeling that Carlo Ancelotti is going to go with a 4-4-2 in this game. And that brings me down to my last point, which is also critical, which is Real Madrid making better use of the space. We saw against the game against Mallorca, Real Madrid oftentimes had the ball, but there was a lot of space on the right-hand side. So many times, Real Madrid had Jude, Vinicius, and Mbappé on the left, and we weren't effectively cycling the ball out into the wide space for Rodrigo and Lucas Vázquez. When there's more space that opens up in this game, we have to be more efficient with the use of the ball. When you look at the goals that Barcelona have been conceding under Flick, when teams have found success, it's because they're efficiently moving the ball. When they do recover it and they're sitting in a deeper position, it's usually 3-4 passes before it's a shot on target. Slow buildup does not make sense in this game. We have to be very quick and efficient with the use of the ball. And unlike kind of what Carlo Ancelotti has been doing with being more vertical this season with more long balls from Rudiger in the back, it comes down to the positioning of the players when we do recover the ball from Barcelona. Jude Bellingham, Mbappé, Vinicius cannot be suckered into constantly being behind the ball unless we're ahead in the game. We can't overcommit to that and be in a position where every time we do recover the ball, there's no outlets. And that's why this is my predictive lineup. But Carlo Ancelotti could go with a different system. He could go with this other lineup, which he did in the game against Mallorca. But the big question is, I don't know about Fede Valverde and Jude Bellingham. From what I understand, they had some slight injuries, but they should be fit for the game. And I'm predicting that Real Madrid will win this game 4-2. The last time I made a prediction, Real Madrid beat Atalanta 3-2, and that was my prediction. So I hope that I'm right again. What do you guys think? Are you optimistic that we're going to clap Barcelona's cheeks? I'm going to be doing a live after the video, a victory live, because I know we're going to win. If any Barcelona fans want to come to that and cry, you're more than welcome to sit there and see what a real club looks like with real fans. Huge shout out to Raul Asensio for making Pablo Maffeo his bitch. If Pablo Maffeo was in a jail cell with Raul Asensio, who do you guys think would be the top? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Hala Madrid.